What's going on, YouTube? Evil Foo here. Steelrising comes out tomorrow, and since I was able to spend a few hours with what they're calling the beta, it's really more of an early access since it only came out 2 weeks before the launch of the game. So even if there is a day one patch, which I'm sure there will be, the devs won't have time to address any of the issues in there. That'll be a little further down the line. But these are my thoughts after playing through the beta for several hours and completing it a couple times. First things first, what is Steelrising? Steelrising is a Soulsborne or a Souls-like title developed by Spider's Game Studio. Spider's been around for quite some time, mostly focusing on action RPGs like the Technomancer series. More recently they did the excellent Greedfall, which was more of the traditional Western RPG akin to the likes of what BioWare used to do before they had their big downfall. But Greedfall was by far their best game. Spider's a small studio. Their games definitely have some jank and a double A feel to them, but they work fast, they put out a lot of games, and they clearly have a passion for making games. That may seem redundant saying a developer of games has passion for games, but we all know there's several developers out there that don't really seem to have any passion and they just want to make as much money as possible and as little effort as possible. Steelrising is the second in a recent batch of Souls-like games that are leaning more into the Bloodborne aesthetic. First, Thymesia came out a month or two ago, and while that game had interesting combat and a cool aesthetic, it was quite short and had a very low budget, lacking minimal things like voice acting. Steelrising is the next out of the chute, with a very similar themed Lies of P due out next year. Both have a Bloodborne-esque 18th century European aesthetic, and both feature, strangely enough, rogue automatons overrunning their cities and killing all the people. Lies of P had a fantastic reception at this year's Gamescom, and just based off the trailers and the footage, it looks to be the smoothest and probably the best looking of these three games. This will be the first impressions or preview video I've done for my YouTube channel. This is the kind of content I would like to do a lot more of. You know, impressions of games, reviews of old games, new games, whatever. Just my general feelings on games and movies, things of that nature. So hopefully this goes well. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to try and do my best here. So I'm going to present the things I didn't like about the beta first, then I'll go over the things I did like, and then my overall consensus at the end. But to save you guys some time, I can just quickly sum up and say this is an excellent Soulsborne game. I definitely think it's worth the $50 purchase price. Alright, before we actually go over any of the gameplay impressions, it does have an assist mode, like a difficulty slider. So when you start it up, it reads, although Steelrising was designed to be a demanding game in standard mode, assist mode allows players to experience the game while tailoring the challenge to suit their preferences and abilities. Please note, however, that by activating this mode, some difficulty-related achievements will not be unlockable. You will have to start a new game in standard mode if you wish to attain them. And it lets you change things like your damage reduction, whether or not you keep your anima essence after death. Anima essence is this game's version of souls, so your currency in the game for leveling up and buying things. Your endurance regeneration speed, how fast your stamina bar refills, and then also your cooling mechanic. There's an easy cooling mechanic which has to do with the stamina bar, which I will go over in the gameplay impressions. So you can start that up. The game does start with a full movie here. It's fully voice acted, has lots of cinematic scenes in it, which is one of the things I'm going to really like about the game because I like a lot of story in my games. You actually start out as the bodyguard. You are a dancer, you're an automaton in this game, but you start out as the bodyguard for Marie Antoinette, and she's here in the palace in Luxembourg. One of the cool things about this game is the 18th century Paris. So there's all kinds of actual famous things from that period of time and those places. So you can visit like the palace here in Luxembourg. It has the Bastille. It has other things like the that were famous things in Paris, such as the Great Pyramids of Giza, the Lost City of Atlantis, the Tower of London. Things like that. You are playing a predetermined character, which is another thing this has in common with Thymesia and Lies of P. But you're playing as Aegis, the former dancer, now bodyguard automaton for Marie Antoinette. In the early stages of the game, I don't know what the story entails for later, but you are the only automaton that is able to speak, so you're pretty unique in that aspect. And then you can change like the material your body's made out of. You can change your wig that you're wearing and the face paint on your character. So you have limited creativity there, but you can customize it. Then you can start from 4 different classes here. You have bodyguard, soldier, dancer, and alchemist. Those are all just like the Dark Souls games. Those are just starting points. You can stat up and level up however you want in the game. So your starting class really just picks your equipment that you have and the perks that you have. It's just a starting point. It's nothing that's going to lock you into anything in the game. You can level up however you want. Once you have done all that, you enter into the game, and then I'm showing you here you can skip cutscenes. So while having story in game is awesome, you can skip any of the cutscenes if you don't want the story, which is always good, especially for repeat playthroughs, things like that. And here's this killing this first enemy here. Once he's dead, I just wanted to show you that there is a item bar, like a inventory belt, kind of like Dark Souls. So you can assign whatever you want on there. You can assign, like in this game, you do oil is your healing, your Estus flask. So you assign those to quick use wherever you want. You just do right and left on your D-pad will cycle in between them, and then X uses them, just like Dark Souls. And then more akin to something like Sekiro or Elden Ring, you do have the ability to jump, which is excellent. That's going to be one of the things I love. When I get to that later. So with that, let's get into the actual preview here. One of the things that happens semi-frequently is you'll be running along, like going through this room right here. See how it gets stuck on an invisible piece of geometry there? Like running in place for a couple of seconds. I go back, I can't find it again. But it actually happens semi-frequently in the game. You'll just be going along and you get stuck and start running in place. It's not game breaking, it only lasts for a few seconds, but it's definitely annoying and it pulls you out of the immersion a bit. Another negative for me for sure are the graphics, and I'll get into that on the positives as well. There are some good things I like about the graphics, but overall, especially I'm running in performance mode here, the 60 frame a second mode, and even that, I think that's down around, it looks like 1080p. It's pretty blurry for a Series X game running in performance. I would guess it's not much above 1080p, but even that drops frames here and there. And that's not anything to do with load or anything like that. I think it's to do with streaming, the streaming tech, the loading tech in the game, the engine itself. So it just has little hiccups here and there once in a while. They're not super frequent, the frame drops. They do happen. But just the overall soft look of things at this low resolution. And there's really not a ton of detailed stuff in the environment. So the graphics are definitely a minus. They're not bad by any means, but they're not, you know, groundbreaking or mind-blowing or really next-gen feeling at all. And the next one is really big for a Soulsborne game because combat really is the most important thing in these games. One of the things with this, and it could just be because it's such an early stage, the beta, and hopefully they're going to change it, but the AI seems kind of brain dead in a lot of places. Like right here, you'll see I'm attacked by 2 enemies, but they really don't do much. They just kind of stand there for the most part, let me attack them. It's like they don't know what to do. Other times the enemies are a lot faster and more responsive, but I do see a lot of times in this the enemies are just kind of brain dead. And it's kind of disappointing because, you know, you want to be challenged, you want to be pushed. And again, this is probably an earlier build because this was for the beta, so hopefully the final game is a little more challenging, and this is at the beginning stages still as well. But it's kind of frustrating to see the AI sit there and not figure out what to do. And continue on with the combat. There's a couple things. One, this is not a good or a bad necessarily. This is a personal preference thing, what you prefer. But you can't roll in this game. You have more of a quick step like you do in Bloodborne and Sekiro. I personally don't mind that at all, but it is fun rolling into things. So you can't roll in this game. One of the big things in the game is you can't block or parry at all. Also, with that dodge, you only have a few iframes in there. It's very precise timing on that dodge, which isn't bad at all. I like that, but it's just, I think it's going to be a little learning curve for some people to be that precise with it. But as far as your blocking or parrying goes, only weapons that have that special ability map to the left trigger. So every weapon works with a light attack on the right bumper and a heavy attack on the right trigger, which you can charge the heavy attacks for a more powerful attack, which will stagger enemies or knock them down, which is great. But the the left trigger, or your L2 button, that is going to be your special ability. So like the fire chain that I'm using here, which by far my favorite weapon from the beta, by the way. The beta has probably like 10, 12 different weapons in it, which is pretty impressive for a small beta. But so this fire chain, the special ability on that one, if you hit the left trigger, you'll jump up in the air, come flying down, and it will set it on fire. You'll have a fire effect on it, so it'll do fire damage to people that you hit with it. But some weapons, if it has a parry, there's a like a Voldo. I want to say like Wolverine at first, but it actually looks more like Voldo from Soul Calibur. There's some Voldo claws in there in the beta. That the special ability on that, if you hit the left trigger, that is parry. And then you're like the starting class for the dancer here. She starts with these really cool metal fans, and she can actually hit left trigger, and it looks kind of like the umbrella from Sekiro. It'll pull out a block, so that block is very useful. But there's very few weapons, it looks like, that have a parry or a block in there. So it's going to be a lot of dodging, a lot of spacing. Like this whip makes it really easy because you can stay really far back with the whip. Another thing I don't like at all has to do with the animations. I guess they're like canned animations, so the animations have to play out. So if you start a slow attack and you realize, oh, you're going to miss or you're going to get hit in there, you can't dodge out of it. You can't dodge cancel to get out of that attack. You're committed once you've hit that button. So that's annoying. I hope that's something they change out, because I kind of like the precision of being able to, oh, I made a mistake, I want to back out real quick. And I understand it could be just considered a gameplay feature. They want you to be more careful with your stuff, but I do like the ability to be able to dodge cancel for sure. Another thing that can really cause some trouble during fights, and this is common in all of the Soulsborne games, but the camera. The camera in one of the boss fights, like a mini boss, when I first started the beta, there was a you're in this tight little courtyard area, and the camera a lot would get stuck on, or not stuck, but things in the foreground or between you and the boss would completely obscure the camera where you couldn't see yourself or the boss. So that was really annoying. Like I said, the camera's always kind of janky in these things. That will probably be improved with patches, things like that. But I would like it if they made the objects that were in the foreground, go transparent so you can see through them when they block the camera between you and your character, or you and the boss. That would be helpful. That's not something that happens right now, so that's something hopefully will get fixed. One thing that I would consider a negative really has to do with my own preconceptions of what the game was going to be. I thought it was going to be more, since it's going for a Bloodborne aesthetic, I thought it would be more horror, like horror based. Like it's not scary at all. I mean, it's not, Bloodborne wasn't scary, but it doesn't really have any horror elements. Yes, these automatons have gone crazy and they've killed all the people, things like that, but it's not very bloody, and it's not really nothing terrifying. There's nothing unnerving about the design of the enemies. The design of the enemies is actually very cool. It's very like Clockwork Knight, kind of almost like a Alice in Wonderland look to them, so that it's very cool, but it's definitely not dark and scary like I thought it would be. So this is my preconceived thing. I think Lies of P definitely looks like it's going to be more of a horror aesthetic, but that's just not something they were going for in this game too much, I don't think. There's definitely some things that are a little bit disturbing, but not like to the level I wanted to be disturbed, if that makes any sense. But that's pretty much it as far as negatives go. There's some other things I can't tell for sure in the beta, but it looks like there's some Metroidvania elements to the game. I found a couple, like I found a damaged wall that had like a metal seal on it. It said I need a special tool to open that seal, and I also found a door that had like the same seal on it, said the same thing, need a special tool. And then I saw what were almost certainly grapple points at a couple places. So I'm guessing you get like a grappling hook at some point, so you can traverse differently, more vertically, maybe like in Sekiro. But one thing with this game, and it makes me think that you definitely will have some special tools in there, is your left bumper in the beta doesn't do anything. So I'm guessing the left bumper will be used for your special equipment items, or at least your grapple, when you get that in the game. But now for the fun part, we can go over some of the more positive aspects of the game. I would definitely like to be more positive than negative. The first one is the design of Aegis herself. She's very cool. She's obviously like a clockwork type thing, automaton, but she's very cool looking. She moves like a robot. She has little subtle animations. Like every once in a while, like an arm will glitch out a little bit. It'll like start shaking a little bit. It's pretty cool. I think her design is really well done. She's a very cool character. And I mentioned I thought the graphics were a little blurry earlier. Well, you do have 3 graphic options in here. I obviously run the high frame rate mode, which I would suggest anybody do because it's going to give you the 60 frames a second. Like I said, it's not lock solid, but it's pretty close. Then you have this is the favor graphics mode, which it definitely looks like it goes up to 4K. And I don't know, I haven't looked at it enough to see what the other small details are. Like probably better, maybe ambient occlusion, texture detail, things like that. Everything's definitely a lot sharper. Even the lighting and everything looks smoother. So it's nice, but it's definitely 30 frames a second. And then you have a favor resolution mode, which I'm not really sure what the difference between the favor graphics and favor resolution is. Maybe some of the better effects they put in the graphics mode are scaled back a bit so it locks in that full 4K resolution the whole time. If you care about locking in the resolution the entire time versus the frame rate or graphics detail, you're a fool in my opinion, but I mean everybody has their own taste in things, so you can do whatever you want. I'm definitely going to be playing in the high frame rate mode. And then going back into the design, the clockwork design of things, like I'll go around the corner here, this is what the checkpoints or the bonfires in this game look like. So you run up to them, there looks like these statues right here. You hold Y on the statue, which holding Y has a problem of its own, by the way. Like, you have to hold Y to, like, say you read a note. There's a note in the environment. You hold Y to read it. But you also have to hold Y to get it off your screen again. I did one in a boss fight, and I had the note up during the boss fight. I had to hold Y instead of just being able to tap and get rid of it real quick. But what's cool about the design of this thing is it lifts up out of the ground, and it has this chair. And then you see when you sit in the chair, this like upgrades the automatons. But there's like these little spider arms that will come out, and they're moving all over you, up and down and stuff like that. And that kind of changes you. But you can go in here, just like a bonfire at a Souls game. You can go in here and change your level stuff, and like your life, your endurance, things like that. Each one also has a boutique. Like the boutique, you can buy your perishable items. You can also buy like weapons, and some of them will have armor and stuff like that. This one has all the, this is the very beginning one, so it has all the 4 starting classes weapons. Then you also have like modules that you can put in. You have 4 slots. It's kind of like ring slots or talisman slots in Elden Ring or Dark Souls. So you can equip those on there. You can do all that through the checkpoints there. It's pretty cool. And I mentioned earlier I would get back to the jump attacks. I missed this one here, the first one. But jump attacks in like Elden Ring were fantastic. Jump attacks in Sekiro were super good. They're really good in this game as well. So I love doing those. I'm glad jump attacks are in there. They're definitely a positive for me. I like jumping around. You can't roll in this game, but you can jump, so that's cool. And I did mention I would mention the graphics in the positives as well as the negatives. I don't think they're the best graphics or anything, but if you can look right here, the lighting in some areas is just fabulous. Really, really good. So I really like the lighting. It's very well done. I think it really looks beautiful. The character and the animation on Aegis herself is really good. The animations on the enemies is pretty good too. But yeah, overall, I think the graphics, I'd probably give them like a 7 out of 10 if you want to put a number on it. I don't think they're the best graphics by any means, but they definitely can be beautiful, as you can see right here. I mean, that's gorgeous lighting. One thing I love is that enemies can damage each other. They won't aggress on each other from what I've seen yet. Maybe later in the game there's different types that will damage each other, but, or, you know, like actually attack each other on purpose. But if you can maneuver them just right, like these guys with the flame, for example, they shoot out this big swath of flame, and if you can get the other guys to go in front of it, it does a ton of damage. There's these guys that swing these big balls on chains, and they have a huge, wide attack. The same thing. If you can maneuver other enemies around them, they'll do most of the work for you. It's fantastic. It reminds me of the old Doom game to try and get, you know, enemies to attack each other. That's something I've always loved in games that allow that. And since we just mentioned flame, I'm going to set this enemy here on fire eventually. So you'll see as I hit him, there's a little bar, or a little symbol, a flame symbol above his health bar there on the top right of his health bar. If you hit him enough times, it'll eventually keep ticking up until once it maxes out, you'll see he actually sets on fire, and he'll do damage over time. And I don't even, like right now he's on fire now. You'll see it's glowing. You'll see his health bar, see how it's going white. Once it hits, I don't even have to do anything. I can just sit back, and the fire will do the rest of the damage for me, and he can just sit here and die while I sit here and look cool. Another thing I want to touch on is the cooldown mechanic. It's super cool. So you have your stamina bar there, the green bar below your health. That counts down as you, or it goes down as you use it, you know. And if you catch it, like right there, if I had caught it right then, I didn't catch it in this video, but if you hit Y, it's like an active reload in Gears of War. It'll actually refill your stamina bar back all the way back up. And then I have this gun here. This gun freezes people in place. It's way overpowered, I think. But it's pretty fun to have a different, you know, means of attack. There's no traditional backstab in this game, but if you sneak up on somebody like that, you lock onto them, it'll turn red when you get close enough. You can do a powerful attack and kill them or do a lot of damage to them. And then most importantly, for someone like me who likes to explore, barrels are breakable in this game. They do contain items in them. Taking place in Paris, the map for this game is huge. I think you'll be able to fast travel in it at the end. That's the little brief look at the map right there. It will show like important NPCs, side quests, things like that you have going on the map. I'm going to show the equipment here real quick. So you have 4 equipment slots. You have your helmet, your chest piece, your legs, and your boots. And anybody that's played a Souls game long enough knows it's all about that Elden bling or that fashion souls. Who cares about the little stat increases here or there? It's all about looking good. You gotta look good in the battle. You gotta look good. But I'll show off a couple of the other weapons here. You can equip 2 weapons at a time. You just switch between the 2 of them by hitting up on the D-pad. This is a double sword set right here. I really liked this in the beta. I was using this until I got the chain whip. Once I used the chain whip, I really didn't use anything else. This one has that spin right there. That's the left trigger. Does a big spin move for this one. Let's see. What else do we have here? Oh, so that's the chain. Same thing. So you can, right there, that's holding down the right trigger. and she'll spin that chain. And like always, all the heavy attacks, you hold down the right trigger, it'll do a charge attack, which will either stagger an enemy or knock him back and do a massive amount of damage. Try out a couple of these other weapons here. This first one I'm equipping, I'm going to do the fan and then the Voldo claws here. So the fan, it reminds me of the Sekiro shield, the umbrella, but this is one of the weapons that does have a block. The left trigger with the fan is a block, which is very cool. This is a very graceful looking weapon, very cool animations on it. And then with the Voldo claws, when you switch to those, that one has actually a parry on it. So with that one, with the left trigger, you'd be able to parry attacks with that. The timing on that is really short window, but it's cool to be able to do that. You definitely look like Voldo. I don't know if you make weird breathing noises like a weirdo like he does, but you always can, you know, role play however you want while playing a game. But yeah, I'll just let this run for a minute here. I'm not going to really talk over these other weapons. Well, I mean, I am going to talk, but I'm not going to explain what's going on here. I just want to sum up basically. So I think as a AA Soulsborne experience, this is a fantastic game. I think, Spiders has done a terrific job here considering they're a small team. Hopefully this turns into a franchise for them and they can find some success with this because they deserve it. And this could be a really cool series to see where it goes from here. Plus, the game is a fantastic deal at only $50. We know some companies are charging $70 for, basically remasters that cut out content. There's no microtransactions in this or anything. So definitely support this team if you can, guys. Give them $50. It's definitely well worth it. I think it's going to be a fantastic little experience. And one last thing I wanted to show off here at the end is like status effects. So I charged the the fire whip here, and you'll see around the weapon symbol there on the left hand of the screen, there's an orange bar around it, which is slowly getting smaller, and there's a countdown at the top too. That's showing how long that fire is going to last on there. It's a very cool effect. So when that bar reaches 0 or the numbers reach 0, the fire would run out on there. But yeah, let me know what you guys would like to see more, like if you want to see any more comparisons, or please, this is my first video of this kind, so let me know what I can do to improve it. I would definitely like to do more of this type of video. And thanks for watching, have a great one, and see you in the comments.
I hate to see you go, but I love to watch you leave.
Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out.